Hello, this is Frank Klesitz, the CEO of Vyral Marketing, and welcome back to our leveraged lead generation hangout. I'm glad you can join us here today. We have a guest here for our second inaugural lead generation hangout after the great one that we did with Tim. Tim is running late today. He'll hopefully hop on the hangout if he can. In the meantime, I'll be holding it for everyone here. And we'll have the Q&A application open. Let me make sure I get that open here. So if you have any questions, the whole reason we do these live is so you can ask questions. The Q&A app is open. If you're attending live, you need to ask questions here on the right. If you'd like to do that. But again, I'm Frank Klesitz, Vyral Marketing. We help you get more sales from your database. Tim works with me because you create videos to help nurture the seller leads generated by outbound prospecting. And today we're going to spend an hour with Sara. Pronounce your last name, Sara.
St. Marceaux.
St. Marceaux. I want to get that correctly. So Sara St. Marceaux. And she is the VP of Inside Sales for the Loken Group, or Lance Loken in Houston, where they did last year. How many homes did your team sell last year, Sara?
659 homes.
659 homes. And you were telling me before the call that you're on track to do, your goal is 1,000 homes this year. Is that right?
That's correct. Over 1,000.
Great. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about her position as a VP of Inside Sales. So she's a sales manager of the outbound prospectors and what that entails and how she got into that role. And then we'll talk about, okay, what was the need for hiring outbound prospectors? You know, when did they make that decision? How much money they spend on that? What's the inventory investment? What do they do? How many contacts they make? How many appointments are being set? How many listings are being taken? So hopefully you can kind of read between the lines and hear what Sara is saying, so you can take that and use it if you're going to apply outbound prospecting in your business and in your market. And Tim's here. Hey, Tim.
Hey.
Hi, Tim.
By the skin of your teeth, you made it. Love you, man.
Glad to be here.
Good. All right, so let's get this thing started. So Sara, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about just Lance Loken and the Loken Group so people can get some background on this team in Houston.
Sure. Well, for those of you guys that don't know, Lance and his wife started the team in 2011. Lance kind of came into this kicking and screaming and wasn't really interested in real estate, but when he did make the decision, it was really a business decision for him, and he wanted to make sure that he did it right. So, he and Karina started this. Their first year, they did $8 million. They were primarily focused on the REO market, so working a lot with investors and buyers. The second year, the light bulb went off, and they decided to focus on listings. Karina was really the first ISA. Lance doesn't like to lead generate, and he doesn't think he's very good at it. So Karina was the one making all the outbound calls for him and sending him on the appointments. The second year of business, they did $23 million.
Wow, so it's 8 to 23 in 1 year?
Yes.
Wow.
The third year, they focused on getting a builder account. They got the fourth largest builder in Houston. And, we were hiring additional people along the way. I actually joined in 2013. And our goal that year was to do $65 million. We actually did $84 million as a result of bringing that builder on board.
That's incredible. First off, for someone to start in the business in 2011 and by 2014 sell that many homes is absolutely incredible. And the fact someone gets in the business and hates prospecting and doesn't much business is incredible, right? And the fact that someone secures a home builder in the competitive market of Houston after only 3 years in the business is absolutely incredible. Is there any insight to that, working with Lance, of how that was even possible?
A lot of it is really, the vision and his drive. He puts very high goals and, is very, very determined to hire talent that has similar goals. So it really starts with the talent, bringing on the right people and making sure that everybody is in line with that same goal.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about now, what I want to spend on this hangout is really just how your whole outbound prospecting team works. Sure. The whole model, and go deep into that. Why don't we start off with what your role is and what you do and how you ended up and where you're at, and then we'll talk about the hiring of the outbound prospecting callers.
Sure. Well, I got my license in October of 2013. My background is actually advertising. I spent 15 years working at ad agencies in New York, primarily, and then Houston, which is where I'm from. And didn't really have the slightest clue what inside sales was, but knew that I wanted to join Lance and Karina's team. So I came on board as an inside sales agent. At the time, there was only outbound prospecting. We weren't handling any of the inbound leads. That was all the buyer agents. So I did that for the first couple of months and really enjoyed it. It's interesting because when I joined the team, I was sure I wanted to be a buyer's agent. And as I got into the role, I found out how much I really loved it. And so, I did it for about 9 months. We brought inbound into the process about 2 months in. And the reason why we did that was, at the time we had 2 buyer agents. We had a lot of inbound leads coming in that we were just losing. And the buyer agents couldn't keep up with all the appointments they were going on, as well as following up with the leads. So we hired another ISA, and he and I were really just kind of rotating the role of inbound versus outbound leads. And we realized very quickly that it takes a certain kind of person to be a great outbound ISA, and it takes a different kind of person to be a great inbound ISA. And so we made the conscious decision to separate the roles. And when I was promoted to VP of Inside Sales, I looked to primarily find people that would be fantastic at outbound, and then find people that would be fantastic at inbound, because they are 2 very different roles.
I think that's very key. And we'll go into the difference between the 2 roles here for everyone. But I think what's also interesting, what you said, what I wrote down, is that you actually came in and you started with outbound. Is that you guys started with actually doing outbound calling for sellers, and you weren't doing anything for the buyer leads and the buyer lead follow-up, which usually for most people it's the other way around. They have someone working the buyer leads, and now they're finally upgrading to outbound. Would you say that's pretty common?
I'm not really sure. I mean, since we made the decision to do it this way, part of our training is we train them on both, because an ISA still needs to know how to convert a seller, even if they're primarily handling inbound, and vice versa. But we spend the majority of the training depending upon which they're going to go into. I think for me, I enjoyed the thrill of the outbound. I think I would have been bored if I had started on inbound first, just because of the patience level required. And I didn't know any better. I mean, I came from a background where I spent, I did PowerPoint presentations, and I helped present creative. Nobody ever gave me a script. So it was kind of exciting to come into this, and you're actually giving me a script, and all I have to do is pick up the phone and call people. This is great.
So, Sarah, what did the agents look like? What did the agents' day look like before you were involved, before they had ISAs at all? Were the agents making the outbound prospecting calls even slightly? Were they calling expireds in their spare time?
No, there's always been somebody that has done outbound. So Karina did it for about a year. Then they brought in another person that was doing it. Her role, though, was also divided because she was managing the production team. Mm-hmm. So I was really the first one to go through the official 100 days training program and be 100% dedicated to this day in and day out.
Gotcha.
Okay. Here's a question I have. I think one of the biggest ahas for the audience, at least from what you said so far, with respect to making a decision to even hire outbound prospectors. Mm-hmm. Usually this is way into the business. This is after you've done a lot of things. It's almost like you do this at the very end. Lance hired an outbound prospector from the very beginning when he realized he wanted to get out of REO. It was the first move he made, at least from what you're telling me. Tim, is there anything you can share on that, of how soon or when the right time is to hire someone in outbound, given the cost structure, and when someone's ready to be able to handle a full-time outbound prospecting assistant? Because Lance did it right away and says, "I hate this. Someone else is going to do it."
Yeah. I think Lance was smarter than I am. That's for sure. I mean, it took me 3.5 years. 3.5 years of doing this myself, day in and day out. And when I look back, I hired an administrative assistant, then I hired another administrative assistant, then I hired a buyer's agent. And I think it was somewhere in between, maybe after the first administrative assistant, before the buyer's agent. So somewhere in that mix, probably after 12 months, but before I'd been doing this for 2 years, probably sometime in that second year would have been the perfect time, because it's right when you get the administrative piece off of your plate, and now you're only focused on sales. But focusing on agent sales and lead generation is still 2 different things. So I would say get the administrative stuff off your plate, then get the lead generation stuff off your plate, and so you can just focus on sales.
Yeah. Is there a certain amount of GCI, Tim, that you would recommend, or a level of business that someone should be at maybe before they hire an outbound prospector to probably have the point of diminishing returns on risk? Like, if I'm doing 1 deal a month, should I hire him 2 deals a month at your typical commission?
So no question, and Sarah, we'll see what you think about this as well, but no question in my mind, on the inbound side, you've got to be doing a certain amount of business to justify having an inbound lead manager, because that's somebody you're paying a base salary to help you with your efficiency in your organization, and help capitalize on leads that are already coming in. On the outbound side, it's totally different. The outbound side is an investment in your future, right? It is just a pure investment in generating more leads for the business. So on the outbound side, if I started in real estate, let me start over. If I completely lost my business today, and I had to start over tomorrow from scratch, from day one, I would figure out a way to be able to hire outbound prospecting from day one, because that's an investment in building consistency for the future. So it's different on the outbound side than the inbound side. On the outbound side, as soon as you have the money to be able to reinvest, that's when you do it. So I don't know if that's when you've sold 0 deals, but you happen to come into the industry with money, or when you've sold 50 deals and now you finally have a nest egg and you're willing to reinvest in yourself and in your business. It could be different for different people, but in my opinion, it's as soon as you're willing to reinvest, it's kind of like buying an investment property. Like, when do you do it? When's the perfect time? Well, it's either right away with your first dollar you get, or it's whenever you feel comfortable doing it, but you're reinvesting in your financial well-being. In my mind, that's what hiring an outbound prospector is. Inbound is a little bit different.
So let's talk about that, Sarah. So let's talk about the current state of your outbound prospecting at the Loken Group. You have 2 full-time outbound prospectors, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Where did you find them, and can you tell us about them as far as their disc personality, how you recruited them? Like, just talk about let's talk about the how you found people who basically grinded out on the phone all day long full-time.
Well, both of them we found through, I guess, Sphere. One of them was actually somebody who was the husband of a listing appointment that I had set for Lance. And she came in, and after she left and we got the listing, Lance said, "I really like her. We should hire her." She, however, was and still is in a marketing role. And she said, "My husband, he works for a credit card company. His whole job is making calls and getting them to move over to this credit card company, and you should really talk to him." So we did, and right off the bat, immediately liked him. And, he's a very, very high D. He's got an above-the-line I, but primarily he leads with his D. And so
he's a high D on the disc assessment, which you can get for free on the Tony Robbins site. Same one? Yep. And then he has a history of success on phone sales.
Yes, absolutely. And then the other person as well was also somebody that had phone sales from a cable perspective, and we got through Sphere as well.
The phone sales was more inbound because it was cable subscriptions, right?
Yes. Yeah, okay. But somebody who was comfortable being on the phones all day long, still having a metric to measure against on a daily basis.
Still a high D for the second hire?
Yes.
Great. Anything to add on that, Tim?
Yeah, what I've always found interesting, Sarah, about y'all's business and my business, something that is really consistent, is that we generate the majority of our business from people we've never talked to before, completely cold. However, we generate the majority of our staff from referrals, right?
Yes.
So, and I think it's worked out. Well, I know it's worked out really well for you guys, and it's worked out really well for us as well. And it's just funny. It's when somebody is referring them to you, there's this certain benchmark that's been, you just know has been passed. If it's somebody that you already know, like, and trust, and they're saying, and they know you, right? So they know both parties. They know you and your business and what it takes to succeed over there, and then they also know this person. By them making the connection, they're saying, yeah, you can bypass 90% of what you normally have to do when you first meet a candidate, because I'm telling you this is a good match. And now it's just doing that extra 10 or 20%, and the risk that you take on that hire is so much less. You mitigate a lot of that risk by focusing on referrals. So the reason we focus in our business not as much on referrals is because We're doing hundreds and hundreds, and y'all are working on doing 1,000 deals this year. So your sphere is only so big. So to do 1,000 deals straight from your sphere is really challenging. But your team is only 20 people or 30 people. So you can find 20 or 30 really good people for your sphere. You don't have to worry about finding 1,000. So I think it makes a lot of sense that you guys are finding talent that way. And I just wanted to point out that consistency between both of our businesses. It's something that people out there should look for.
Well, let's talk about a few tactics on that. I mean, I know, Tim, one of the things that you do is you speak at local events for real estate, and now you get some business not business, but referrals that way.
Yeah.
I do know some clients at Vyral, they'll actually just type up, hey, I'm looking to hire this person, and they'll send an email out to their whole database and get replies back and referrals of people that want to come work for the position. I know that works really well.
That's what I love. That's what I love about you, Frank, is you're such a good writer. When you write this content for us and we post it, we get a lot better response than when we try and write it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone that's interested, if you want some seller leads, go to Get Vyral, and at the top there's the magical seller lead gen email. Copy and swipe that and send it out. It's basically the same idea. Take an email like that, send it out to your list of who you're looking to hire, and you'll get some results. I do know the other thing that works really well is they'll get the whole team together, and everyone pulls up their Facebooks, and everyone updates their Facebook saying, hey, our team is looking to hire this person. Message me or let me know if you know of anybody. So get your whole team to update their Facebook and get some referrals that way. Sarah, do you know of any other strategies to work this sphere to try to find, if you're looking for somebody looking for a prospector?
Yeah, we've done Facebook. We've sent emails out to our entire client database. We go on LinkedIn. We've had phone call days where we're just calling everybody we know in our sphere, our affiliates, lenders, title company, insurance company, anybody that we work with. We're always looking for, we're sending emails to them and contacting them to try and find talent.
So let's look for kind of a checklist on that person. Looks like a history of being comfortable and being a history of achievement on the phones, right? You're looking for, you give them the disc, they have a high D, seems pretty common. What other things would you look for maybe as far as during the interview process of saying this person's probably a good fit for the outbound role?
Well, and I do want to caveat, just because somebody doesn't have a history of being on the phones doesn't mean that they won't be good at it. Primarily, we're looking for somebody who is professional, extremely driven. If they've come from a corporate or sales and marketing background, that's certainly where we've found the most success as well. But I would say overall, just, if somebody comes in and they can't explain to me what their goals are and what their plan is for the future, they're not going to be a good fit for our team, because we have high goals and we expect that everybody that comes on the team has high goals for themselves as well, and they want to come in and achieve something.
So something to point out about that, Frank, she said highly driven, and if you think about what this role is being compensated, they're not being guaranteed this huge amount of money. It's more of an upside over a long period of time. So you need somebody who's highly driven that's willing to come in for 30 grand base, right? Mm-hmm. So if you find somebody who's highly driven and willing to come in for 30 grand base, it's probably going to be that they're young, or that they're coming off of a screwed up opportunity. They're coming off of an organization that flopped, or some kind of weird situation in their life that they're willing to take a step back because they're so driven that they can see they're investing in themselves. Or you're going to find somebody super young that is just willing. They're just saying, yeah, 30 grand base, great. I'm going to take it and run with it. I'm starting my career. So you're kind of, because you're looking for those two things, you're not just going to find anybody. Not every driven person is going to be willing to come in and take that base. So you're looking for kind of some of those marks.
Well, which leads to the exact next question is, after you find that person, is how would you suggest you structure compensation? Could you share about your recommended compensation for the role at your team, if somewhere that can work for you, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. And to Tim's point, it is a difficult role to recruit for. It's probably one of the hardest roles to recruit for. So for our outbound side, really for the ISAs, when they're coming in through the 100-day training program, we want to make sure that they aren't worried about where their next paycheck is coming from, because during this process they are producing, but they haven't really built their pipeline yet. We want them to focus on learning the scripts, learning habits, learning processes and systems. So during the 100 days, they're paid draw, if you will, of 1,500 every 2 weeks. Anything that they set appointments on during that 100 days, if it closes during that time, they're not going to get extra compensation on top of that. Lance actually gets it because, again, at that point, it's really just a flat compensation rate in that 100 days. After the 100 days, it's a base of 1,000 every 2 weeks, plus 10% of every closed deal. And again, we do have 2 of our inbound ISAs that are making a little bit more. However, we've asked them to do a lot more admin work on the back end as a result. So their compensation is slightly higher. I wouldn't say it's a lot much higher. You know, it's a lot higher, but it's a little bit higher for those 2.
Sara, is there commission on the back end, or their upside on the inbound side? Is it a little bit lower? I get their base is higher. Is the upside on the outbound side a little bit better or higher than it is on the inbound side?
The upside is better on the outbound side, just because
that's how it is for us as well.
Are infinite.
Yeah, the base on the inbound side as well for us is a little bit higher, but the upside is a little bit lower. So it's a more secure role and it's a more administrative role.
It is.
But the outbound side has that low base with a higher upside over time.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at just sheer number of appointments and conversions, you know, you're going to see that the outbound prospector at the end of the day can make more money, you know, if they're hitting their goals day in and day out. You know, the inbound ISA would have to work a little bit harder to hit that same amount.
Okay. One of the things I caught you saying was 1,000 every 2 weeks. Is there a reason you say that versus 24,000 a year? Or does it sound better?
I guess it sounds better.
Yeah. I don't know. I hear that a lot. I just wonder if there's a reason behind that. My question. All right. So we kind of talked a little bit about compensation. By the way, if there's any questions over here on the right, feel free to ask questions live. Patrick, I think we answered your question. Do you notice a certain disk-related profile and quality of ISAs? I think it's just a high DI, right?
I would say so, yes. Absolutely. For the outbound side.
I was talking to my friend Adam earlier today, and Adam he made a comment about longevity in the ISA role, and he said, you know, I've got an SI that has been with us for almost 3 years, and we both agreed that this role is probably not a role somebody will, you know, unless they get into a leadership opportunity, it's probably not a role that they'll stay in for 5 years or 6 years. But if you're looking for longevity, you probably have a better chance with an SI than you would with a DI. However, you might have better short-term results with a DI than you would with an SI. That doesn't really help give you an answer of which one you should choose. It just kind of hopefully gives a little perspective on that. There's not one right way to do it. There's just different ways that work different ways.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, Tim. You know, we do have an SI on the inbound role, and you know, she's been with us the longest in terms of, you know, other than myself, she's been with us the longest on the ISA side.
So you talked about this 100 days. What's that?
It's a 100-day training program, and you know, the first 30 days we're concentrating on them learning scripts, learning how to overcome objections, learning how to close for the appointment, learning processes and systems. And so they spend the first week shadowing agents and learning the scripts and role playing. The second week they are being shadowed. And we continue role play throughout the process, obviously, but you know, now they're making calls and being shadowed. By the end of the 30 days, you know, they should feel comfortable setting appointments on their own. I would say between day 31 and the rest of the time, we're focusing on improving their skills, improving their conversions, and making sure that they are developing the habits that they're going to carry through, either as an ISA or as a listing or buyer agent, because all of our listing and buyer agents come through the 100 days training program as well for the ISAs.
Tim, what are your thoughts on the first 100 days, and what have you learned from that?
Yeah, you know, I think we originally started working with Sarah's document. I think Sara and I, or you know, the Loken group and our group, essentially collaborated a little bit on that first 100-day plan. And we got recently to the point where we have a full 100-day plan written out, mapped out, and we kind of got to the point where we realized that we really expect most of what I had originally mapped out in a 100-day plan. We really expect most of it to be done pretty quickly. Now, we don't expect the results all to happen right away. We expect their productivity within the first 100-day benchmark to still last 100 days, and we expect them to still grow and increase in their results over 100 days. However, learning the scripts and dialogues and grasping our culture and understanding who we are and everything that we have in that plan, most of it really can be done in the first couple of weeks. And we expect it now to be done in the first couple of weeks. So we've sort of started to fast track that plan and kind of revitalize it a little bit.
Okay. So let's move on from there. And I think the big question is the ROI. And Patrick, this is your question. What do you see ROI for each ISA, a good ISA? So let's talk about like the dials and the contacts and the appointments being set. And before we get into that, though, the big question is you have to spend a lot of money before you see the result, right? So what you were saying earlier, Sarah, is that you're spending $1,500 every 2 weeks when they start. So that's $3,000 for the first month, $3,000 for the second month, $3,000 for the third month, and like an extra grand and a half finally at the end of their 100 days. At that point,
Yes.
then they go to $2,000 a month plus 10% of the upside. So after the first 100 days, you're already in like 10.5.
Correct.
Right? Now, have you got any actually deals closed by then in the first 100 days, typically?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And again, anything that comes in during that 100 days that closes, they're not seeing the commission on that. Lance is getting all of that. And okay. Lance understands, too, that this is an investment. He doesn't expect that he's going to net a profit within the first 100 days on every ISA. We're hiring 6 months out for production that we're looking at, building next year. So it's always an investment, and Lance looks at it as something that we're going to see results for next year, anything that we do this year.
Okay. Well, so let's look at it this way. So they're full-time on the phones after 30 days, and they're making calls, and they're setting appointments usually on day 31. A full-time calling prospector, doing outbound, should be making how many dials, how many contacts, how many appointments set, how many of those appointments keep, how many turn into contracts. I'm sure you have those numbers. Could you maybe share with us some of those numbers, Sarah, that are working on your team?
Sure. And I don't track dials on a daily basis. I can tell you the average just from the reports I look at. It's generally about 70 dials to get to their 20 contacts. And it's interesting because from a goal perspective, we always want the 2-10-40. And it's a hard thing to do in the first 100 days. Only 3 of our ISAs are actually out of the 100 days. So we focused a lot heavier now on just hit your 20 contacts, focus on improving your conversions, and the results will come. But again, the goal is at least 2 appointments a day, 10 a week, 40. That's the ultimate dream. Depending upon the ISA, it could take anywhere from 10 contacts to make 1 appointment to upwards of 16 or 17, depending upon how novice they are. And then, the ultimate goal for us is to have, my ultimate goal is to have 90% of all appointments made, kept, and all appointments, or at least, 95% of the appointments gone on to agreements signed. And, we're just not there yet. Right now, the conversions across the board, it's almost 70% appointment made, kept. And we're running about 55% appointment gone on to agreement signed. And there's some lag time in those numbers because we don't always get the agreement signed on the spot. Sometimes it takes a week or 2 before that agreement is signed. But that's what our numbers are running at about right now.
Okay. 70 dials seems low when you could be doing, you're doing just listed, just sold calls, you're calling expired, you're calling visitors. Who are they calling, first off?
They're calling expireds. Well, when I say 70 dials, I mean it could take 366 dials on Mojo before they actually get either a pickup or a voicemail.
Oh, okay. So a dial is going to be just an attempt to call somebody. So you're making a couple hundred of those on a dialer.
Correct. On average, it's probably about 366. And a lot of those will either not pick up, When I say 70, I mean we either hit voicemail or they made a contact.
Okay, so you're speaking to 70 people a day.
No.
No.
On average, it's about 20. The other 50, they're hitting the voicemail.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
Sorry.
I'm trying to make sense of it here, too. All right.
So we're running at about a 12% answer rate, which is, we're calling a lot of neighborhoods and everything. So I think all in all, that's I'm trying to run the math for 20 conversations. It's more like 150, probably around 150 dial outs on our end. So it's probably in a similar category.
Okay, but at least you are using a dialer. You're both using Mojo for your dialing, right?
Yes.
And then where do you get your numbers from of how you load them in there to the call? And is there a certain order of number? Is there a certain order when the prospector comes in of who they're calling? Or do you recommend like a certain tier of who they should be reaching out to for the best contact or conversion rate?
We rotate for outbound and inbound so that we don't have just one person getting primarily one lead source versus another. So we have one outbound person that'll call expireds and terminateds and FSBOs on one day. And then the other outbound person will be calling just listed, just sold. They'll also call older expireds from last year or even up to 5 years ago. And then they rotate that. Every other day they rotate.
Okay. What about where do you get your phone numbers?
The phone numbers are coming in for expireds from Loken. And when we pull much older expireds, we have to go into RedX. We actually have to download the MLS and put it into RedX and search for numbers. Just listed, just sold, and any other circle prospecting that we're doing, we use Cole Realty Resource.
Okay. And all those just load right into the dialer and you make the calls?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Vulcan 7 actually feeds directly into Mojo, so they don't even have to put the numbers in.
All right. As far as for like a team keeping spirits high and leading the team, anything you can share with from a managerial standpoint, what you do with your 2 dedicated outbound people to keep them going every single day?
Yeah, I mean, we have a morning huddle. Every morning we do a little bit of role play. We talk about our goals and affirmations and get everybody revved up and pumped up. We have dedicated break times where we all just kind of, convene in the hallways and talk about our wins and ahas and any challenges. And everybody takes these little breaks and then they just get back on the phones. And, it really works well because they can talk to each other about challenges they're having and help each other out with a little bit of role play. Each person has their own individual bell. So every time they make an appointment, they're ringing the bell. So just hearing the people on the phone and hearing the bells ring, it really just gets everybody energized throughout the day.
What about you, Tim? How do you keep your team motivated to make these calls day in, day out, all the time?
Well, we do a couple of different things. One thing that we've really focused on is having a leaderboard in the office. So a leaderboard is essentially, we use Gecko Board, and Gecko Board, we have a big screen TV, and it just has it has a bunch of different leaderboard columns where it ranks the top dial time, the top generated nurtures, top appointment set, ranks by GCI generated for the business. And essentially what we're doing is we're just kind of keeping some horizontal accountability to daily production. Another thing we do is we downloaded an app called Sworkit. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Sworkit before. But,
I haven't, but I'm writing it down.
Yeah, write it down. I heard about it from a friend of mine who's not in real estate, but they did it at their company and for their salespeople in the oil and gas industry. And essentially what they would do is you can set alarms on Sworkit, and so every 2 hours, she told me, she said, every 2 hours the alarm goes off and everybody has to stop what they're doing, and you'll get up against the wall, it'll have some different crazy exercise, and it'll be like you get up against the wall and do wall sits, and you have to do it's just all kinds of different crazy exercises that you can do to just get the blood flowing, kind of reset for a second. So what we've started doing is I have a different salesperson on my team that has cold called in the past but is not currently an ISA. This could be an agent, a sales manager, just one of my more senior people that takes a shift throughout the day where they just spend an hour in the ISA room walking around, keeping the energy level high, helping kind of do some coaching and things like that. And it's just an opportunity for them to engage with that piece of the team and to just work on the energy and keep morale high in that room. So that's been really helpful. We don't cover every hour of the day, but we cover 4 hours of the day. So it's just kind of throughout the day to kind of pick it back up and everything. That's another thing we've worked on.
Before we go deeper on that, I want to step back, Patrick. Your question, I'm sorry, man, is that the ROI for the ISA, we didn't go as deep as I wanted on there.
Hey,
so
can I do a share screen on that? So I actually, when we were talking about that, I kind of felt bad for Patrick because I felt like we didn't go as deep. And I pulled something up just now that might be a little bit helpful for him. Can I do a share screen?
Yeah, roll your mouse over my face, and then you'll see a little green box on your left with a white arrow over it. Click that, and then make sure you only select the window that just has the Excel spreadsheet, whatever it is, not the whole screen. It'll be too small for us. So just select the window that has that open, and let's talk about like the full-blown ROI of the position long-term. Mm-hmm. If someone's making, how many contacts a day are all your ISAs? Yours is 20 contacts, right, Sarah?
Yes.
Can you see this?
Contacts a day.
Yeah, it's coming in. How many contacts a day do your prospectors make, Tim?
There's
actual people on the phone.
They're making about 800 dials a day in a full day.
Oh, so you guys are doing a lot more dials.
In a full day? Yeah. I mean, it just depends, though. I mean, if somebody's coming in and working for a full day and they're getting after it all day long, they can make that happen. If they're coming in and taking breaks and walking around, there's no question we have people that do less than that. We have people that work hard, and we have people that that work medium, and we have people that slack. And so we've been at times where we're averaging significantly less than that. But we've got it now to a point where we can hit those numbers on the triple dialer.
Your screen's black, by the way. Why don't you try to share that screen one more time? Click share to all. Is there a share all button on the top of your screen, or?
Yeah, let me do another shot.
I can see your face now. That's good.
Try this. How's that?
Nothing. There we go. I can see myself. Now change the spreadsheet, whatever you want to share.
Nope, I'm already doing that. We're gonna try one more time.
All right.
Here we go. Yes?
Here we go. Got it.
All right. Okay.
And just so you know, if anyone's watching this, you may want to take the YouTube video, make it very large, and turn up the HD resolution so you can see these numbers.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead and share it with us, Tim.
So this is something that is based off of. This is not our team by any means. Our average commission is almost $9,000, so it's a little bit different. But I based this off of 6,000 because I think probably more businesses can relate with this. More business owners might be able to relate with this. So if you had an average GCI, and I'd encourage you to recreate this on your own computer so you can kind of tweak it and play around with it. But if you had an average GCI of $6,000 and a monthly compensation of $2,500, which would be, Sara said theirs is about $2,000. So you just put in whatever your monthly compensation would be. This was based off of a $30,000 base salary. What we've done here is we've said after they've been with the company for 3 months, we've invested $7,500 in them, right? Because this is the ISA investment column. So after we've been with them for 3 months, we've invested $7,500. After we've been paying them for 6 months, we've actually invested $15,000 in them. So Frank, you were kind of going down this line a little bit earlier. 9 months, $22,500, and then after a year, you paid them $30,000. So this is the ISA investment. So based off of a $6,000 average commission, we say the number of homes closed for a break even at the 3-month mark would be 1.25. Okay, so you would need to have 1.25 homes closed for a break even, 2.5 homes closed at the 6-month mark, 3.75 at the 9. So this is showing you for a break even. If you wanted a 3x ROI, 3 times your return, then here's where you would need to be as far as homes closed based off of this $6,000 average commission if you're paying them $2,500 a month, and so on and so forth as you get to a 5x return and a 7x. And then if you want to hit the big mama right here, 10x return, then what you would need to do is you would need to have at the 3-month mark to be at a 10x return, you need to have closed 12.5 deals. So what we know, and I'm sure Sara would agree with me, is that's extremely unrealistic to have closed 12.5 deals at the 3-month mark. In fact, in my organization, it's unrealistic to have closed 25 deals at the very first 6 months of their career because they start with no pipeline. So to expect a 10x return right away or even within 6 months is going to be unrealistic. However, we have multiple ISAs hitting 50 closed deals at the end of 12 months. as that pipeline matures. So you can look for a 10x return at the 12-month mark, but what we know is we're looking more for that 5 to 7x return at the 9-month mark, and so on and so forth, down to we're just hoping we break even by the 3-month mark. Do y'all see how that works? Frank, do you get how that works?
That's a great, simple spreadsheet.
Thank you, Tim. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. What's also cool about this is because there's really two perspectives you've got to look at. You got to look at your ROI from your perspective as a business owner, but it's also extremely important that you monitor what is the ISA actually going to make if they're on track for this. So if you're paying them $2,500 and this is your average commission, and and we're assuming that we're bonusing them 5% in this model. Now, Sara said they're bonusing them 10%, so that would obviously help what the ISA is actually making here. So, but it's important you look. So if you hit a 10x return, if you make 10 times your investment because they did 50 deals, are you comfortable paying them more than 45 grand? Well, then maybe you pay them more than maybe you pay them more than a 5% bonus. Maybe you pay them a 10% bonus, like Sara was suggesting. The reason we do a 5% bonus is because our average GCI is closer to 9 grand. So it makes a little bit more sense on our end. But you got to look at the other perspective. What is the ISA actually taking home at the end of the day? And is that enough for them for it to be a win for them? If it's not, we got a problem. So hopefully this spreadsheet is able to help Patrick with that return on investment question.
Tim, take I think it's like Control Option 4. Take a screenshot of that and email that to me, and I'll post it up on the.
This actually is. Yeah, this actually is a screenshot, so I'll just send it to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just email that to me, and I'll post it up on the Google Plus page after the Hangout.
Fantastic. Are we back?
I think that, yeah, you're almost. Not yet.
How do I unshare here?
So you unshare and turn your webcam back on. That was good, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Hopefully that gets your questions answered. So all you guys, Patrick and John, will get a screenshot of that available. Is that spreadsheet available to clients of Phone Animal, or what? How does someone get that spreadsheet?
Yeah, so taking leverage lead generation, or if you sign up with Phone Animal, we will definitely send that over. And I can, Frank, I may need to recreate it because I was cleaning out my computer and I believe I deleted it, and that's why I took the screenshot before I deleted it. So I can recreate that in 5 minutes for everybody, and we can make that happen. Are we back on?
Yeah, you're back. I can see you. Good. Okay. So scripting. The whole licensed, unlicensed thing, and what they can say and not say, and what are the ideal scripts to stay on the phone. Sara, how do you handle that, and what do they say, and where could you guide someone to kind of at least give someone a head start on how to teach people what to say on the phones when they're making these calls?
Well, for anybody that's coming into the ISA program, we'd like for them ideally to be licensed before they start. But if they're not licensed, they at least need to be finished with all of their classes and be in the process of taking their exam. So that first week or two, they may not actually be able to get on the phone because they're not licensed yet. So in that time, they're really just doing a lot of shadowing and learning the scripts and doing role play and learning all the processes. So within that first 2 weeks, they've got to get licensed so that by week 3, they're able to get on the phone. So as far as scripts, we use a lot. Say that again?
Do you pay for their licensing, or do they cover that?
No, we don't pay for their licensing.
Okay.
No classes, no licensing. We do pay for Bold. So during the 100 days, they are actually going through Bold, so they're learning all the scripts through Bold as well. And we use a lot of those scripts as well internally. We've used some other scripts in the past, Jackie Kravitz scripts, scripts that we've gotten from other agents as well. And it's, for us, it's really just about, finding the one that's going to work best. And so oftentimes they're experimenting with different scripts to see which ones they're seeing the best close rate from.
Anything to add on that, Tim?
Yeah, we pay for their license. If they're going to get licensed, we pay for it. But we're also paying a slightly smaller base than what you guys are in the first 90 days. So I was thinking about it in my head. I'm like, I think that the difference, it all kind of evens out in the end. You guys are paying them $3,000, we're paying them $2,500. So in 90 days, that's an extra $1,500, which is about the cost to get your license. So take all the classes and all that. Regarding the scripts, yeah, over the last 6 years, I've been basically taking Bold and Finding the Motivated with Jackie Kravitz and The Language of Sales, putting together some of our own scripts. I've worked on everything, everything Ben Kinney's put out into the public space. I've been, taking and utilizing, and so our script book is kind of a mixture of all of those amazing minds kind of put together, and then I kind of tweaked it a little bit to work for me, and then my ISAs started to tweak it a little bit to work for them, and so we put together a script book that we give out in our leverage lead generation class to all the attendees, and that's, it's nothing different than it's different than what you guys use, but it's nothing better. It sounds like you guys have done the exact same thing that I've done, just creating that book of educational content from the great minds in the industry.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what else? Other question here from John. Would you hire the assistant before the ISA, or can you hire the ISA as the business picks up and add the assistant?
Well, it just depends how long you want to do administrative work, right? I
think it goes back to the risk tolerance of the person.
Yeah. I mean, how much money do you have? How much money are you willing to risk? If you go back to that spreadsheet I was showing, you're probably going to be investing in that. It's probably not going to turn into a return on your investment for 90 days, if not more like 120, 130 days. So you're going to be investing, meaning dumping money in for 3 or 4 months. So when you think about your risk tolerance, do you have 2,500 times 3 or 4 months? Do you have 10 grand that you're willing to put into this thing so that you can get money out of this thing? And what I like about it is they're actually focusing on bringing money back in, whereas when you hire an administrative assistant, you're investing in them so that you free your time up so that you can go bring money back in to the business. So it's hiring the administrative assistant, you're counting on yourself to increase the revenue. Hiring this person, you're counting on them to increase the revenue. If you got enough money, hire them both at once, but now you've got also time commitment to training them and everything. I would go administrative assistant first, count on yourself to increase your revenue, and then secondly, hire them and now hold them accountable to increase your revenue.
Okay. So for somebody in this role, they're coming in grounded every day making those calls. You want to talk about how to hand that over to the agent and the pass over? Like, how do you pass over the lead correctly to an agent for follow-up so it's handed off well?
So our ISAs don't hand off leads, they set appointments. So once they've gone through the pre-qual questions with the buyer or the seller and determined that they are ready, willing, and able to move, they will set the appointment on the agent's calendar. Anybody that's not ready at this time or needs some additional cultivation, the ISA will continue to cultivate that lead until they are ready to set that appointment. Now, if an agent goes on the appointment and let's say something happens with the buyer's finances or the seller decides they need to wait a little bit longer, then the leads come back to the ISAs for further cultivation until they're ready again.
Okay. That seems like a pretty high standard for the ISA to set an appointment. Does the agent confirm that before they go, or does they show up at the house? Are these appointments coming into your office? That's one of the highest standards to set the appointment to send that agent out. So I want to hear a little more about that versus just passing the lead.
So the agent does not confirm the appointment. It's the ISA's responsibility to call 24 hours in advance, confirm the appointment. They send a pre-qual list as part of the Outlook calendar invite that says all of the responses that they got from the seller or the buyer. So when are they looking to move? What's their motivation? And going 3 deep on that motivation. Whether or not they've been pre-qualified yet for a loan. What are they looking to do once they sell the house? They're going down a list of about 20 questions, and they have to answer all of them and put them in the Outlook calendar. If the agent looks at it and sees that it doesn't look like a pre-qualified buyer or seller, then at that point it becomes a conversation, going back to the seller, do they decide to go on the appointment or not? So it happens from time to time.
Could you read those questions to us? I'd be curious to see what those questions are for the pre-qualification. You have 20 questions in the Outlook calendar?
I can email them.
You could email those to me.
Say them all right now. Hang on, let me pull them up.
I'd like to hear them. I'd like to hear them. I think our audience love to hear those.
Sure, absolutely.
So it's 20 questions they got to fill out. Okay.
Just pull it up.
So the ISAs are also working them over a very long. That makes a lot of sense. Is that your model, Tim? Do you have the same model in your office? Do they pass the lead to the agent, and then the agent follows up, or are they setting the appointments for the agent?
So we used to do it where they were setting the appointments for the agent, and we don't have time to talk about it on this call, but maybe on the next hangout next month we can go over this. But we've evolved to generating the qualified lead and putting it into a bucket for the agents to work from that bucket, and that's part of the concept of Phone Animal, and that's what we do in our business for our agents. So on the next hangout, Frank, we'll be talking quite a bit about that.
Okay, like the handover and like what's the threshold of when it actually becomes a nurture versus an appointment, how you qualify that, which is kind of like a faucet, how much you want to turn on and turn off, I would think.
Right.
Do you have those questions, Sarah?
I do. I have them pulled up.
Yeah, let's read off all of them.
So motivation questions, where are they planning to move? How soon do they need to be there? What's important to you about moving to that place by that particular time? And then going into additional questions, do they plan on interviewing more than one agent for the job to sell their house? If so, how did they choose the agents that they're interviewing? Do they have a price in mind that they would like to list their house for realistically? What price won't they go below? What will they need to net from the sale of this home for the purchase of their next home? If we sell their home in the next 30 days, would that be a problem? Do they have a mortgage balance on the home and any other mortgages or liens on the property that would need to be paid upon the sale of the property? We also asked them to confirm the square footage, number of bedrooms and baths, as well as any other additional rooms. Oftentimes the homes that we get, they may not have been listed before in the MLS, so we want to make sure we have all of that information. What updates they've made to their home since they purchased it. Do they have a pool and or a spa? How would they rate their home on a scale of 1 to 10, and what would make it a 10? Anything else that would positively or negatively affect the price of their home? Will all decision makers be there when the listing specialist arrives? What are the top 3 things they're looking for in their next agent? Do they have any questions for us before our listing specialist meets with them? And last, when they meet with our listing agent, if they feel comfortable and confident that we will get their home sold, are they prepared to list with us?
That's an incredible list. Did you come up with all those on your own, or you pieced those together after many years of figuring this out?
Those together.
It's a good list. Well, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. That would definitely give you some pre-qualification questions for sure. We got 6 minutes left. We got a couple other questions. What's the most cost productivity efficient model with the virtual assistant versus part-time assistant, and that would make you as an agent more productive? So I guess the question from Roman is, what's the most cost productivity efficient model with the virtual assistant versus part-time assistant? Like, should you hire someone part-time in your office, or do you hire a virtual assistant? I don't know. What are your thoughts on assistants and how much you pay them and the ROI on that, I guess, is the question. You guys can see the question, by the way. If you roll your mouse over me, you guys, and you click the little Q&A box, the little Q&A app that shows up on the icons on the left, you can see the questions here on the right.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, what I would say, we've worked with a ton of virtual assistants, and one of the things that we did with virtual assistants was we spent 9 months working with 6 or 7 on the outbound side. And what we found at the end of the day, after working for a year on the inbound side with virtual assistants and about 9 months on the outbound side, we've really found that keeping them off the phones and keeping them organizing our business is the best use. Organizing and controlling what we expect being done in the database and what we expect being done with each lead, that would be the best use of the virtual. And if you need somebody to cover weekends and evenings, you could use that as a better step than doing nothing, but it's still not going to be the best step. There's a lot of nuances and things that the virtuals aren't picking up on that people will say. So they'll follow a script really well and do exactly what you say. However, somebody who can pick up on nuances that that would take the conversation down a different path than what the script might suggest.
Okay. Anything to add to that, Sara?
Well, we just hired our first virtual assistant, who is 2 weeks in the making, and we are using them for inbound leads that come in the evenings and weekends. They're not setting appointments. They're basically getting information from the leads, providing follow-up tasks for ISAs when they come in the morning. So they'll basically, tell us that we've got leads that are, A, B, and C based on the questions they have answered. And then the ISAs follow up with them in the morning and look to set the appointment with those leads.
Okay. Let's move on to one more here from Patrick. Your second year in the business. What would you currently suggest if you're around 75 to 120 GCI projected and are looking for ISA leverage? I want to see production sooner than 6 to 12 months out. Either one of you.
I guess I would say a couple of things. One, you could the challenge is lead generation in this business, Patrick, is it's about building a pipeline for consistency in the future. So if you want instant results, there are lead generation sources for instant results, like radio advertising, TV. Those provide instant results. They're very expensive, and what they generate today obviously doesn't pay off in the future. It pays off today, but they are very expensive. Prospecting is about generating for the future. So when you have a lot of expireds in your market, you can get instant results. When you have a lot of for sale by owners, you can get instant results. But in today's market, there are a limited amount of that. So when you run out of that, what you're hiring the prospector for is to deliver long-term consistent results for your business. And so I'd highly suggest that you focus on thinking of the big picture of the business instead of and not just what's in the now. And one of the ways you could do that is that's why we created Phone Animal. You could work with Phone Animal. Another way is hiring an inbound or an outbound prospector right here in house. So either one of those would be great options. But both of them are going to take 3 months, 4 months, 5 months to start really paying dividends.
Great. Sara, how would you answer that question? For someone doing 75 to 120, what should they do?
I would answer it exactly like Tim did. And Lance says this a lot. It really is an investment. It's an investment in your business. It's an investment for the future of your business. So you'll see some immediate results with lead sources like radio, which are very expensive, as Tim mentioned, expireds, home valuation ads. But primarily, you're looking at least, 6 to 12 months out before you really start seeing that return on your investment.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, I'll give you a quick tip since I'm with Vyral, obviously. Go to our website, take the magical seller lead generation email, copy it, paste it, send it to your database, and there's some instant results for you. That's going to take everyone in your database and drive them to a free value report that you personally can follow up with that can turn some listings. Same thing for you too, Sara. Want to get that to your database. So I guess we'll wrap it up there. I really appreciate everyone coming. These are 100% educational. Again, lots of Q&A over here on the right. Feel free to reach out to Tim. He started a company called Phone Animal where he hires these prospectors in his office in Austin to literally make these calls for you, like on a zip code exclusive basis. That's what Phone Animal is. I'm with Vyral Marketing. We take those leads as well as the rest of the contacts in your database and nurture them with educational videos. Or in the case I told you before, a couple of direct offer emails, like that magical seller lead generation email. I'm telling you, send it out to your list. It's free up on the website. Then Sara, I have to say, thank you so much for being here on this hangout. How could someone contact you if they have any questions, maybe even working for you, if they see this, or maybe want to come shadow your team or any other options there that you guys maybe have? How would someone get a hold of you?
Absolutely. They can call my office, 281-374-4660.
Great. I'll go ahead and stop it there, and we'll see you guys here for next time.
All right. Thank you.